4 years ago, I paid little to no attention to mining beyond bought a few ASICs and plugged them in. And to me, ASICs were network security, block creation.
Which they are.
Yeah. But to me, they were never what the fuck we've been talking about today.
Yeah.
And that's where we've come in 4 years. In 4 years' time, what is the next, like, has Bitcoin itself, has it disrupted another industry? Is it going to disrupt multiple industries? No, it's disrupted banking. It's disrupted cross-border payments. You know, it's disrupted authoritarian control.
Yep. Nice.
Disrupted a little bit of censorship, depending on how, your quality of your skills in doing that.
And it's disrupted journalistic groups that are disrupting censorship. So,
yeah, it's disrupted podcasting. It's disrupted football. All right, sorry, I'm just kidding there. But it's disrupted the energy infrastructure industry. Like, it's disrupted.
I'll give you a case for one of these companies. I'm advising Vespine. Right, they are proposing something to that would achieve 20% of the EPA's goals in methane reduction. 1/5 would be achieved by one company in Bitcoin, right? On just from capturing and burning landfill gas, they would achieve 1/5 of the EPA's goals. Like, did Hal see that coming? Like, I doubt it.
Dude, it's the ultimate disruption technology. I mean, I used to talk about this book on the show a long time ago. There's a book I read years ago, my friend recommended, called Engines That Move Markets. Can you bring that book up? See if you can find the index. Okay, and it was about the innovations that fundamentally changed the world. Obviously, the internet's in there. Yeah, electricity, I think, is one of them. I think the railroads. It was like what this invention suddenly changed.
The
telegraph, yeah. And I know this book has to get rewritten with a new chapter in it, which is Bitcoin, and it's not there yet.
You got it. So I mean, in some ways, this is very common knowledge. Saying, "Oh, Troy's got a new idea. Bitcoin's a tool." Like, yeah, everybody knows that. But no, here's how I'm thinking about it. It's the kind of tool that's basic, like one of those,
like fire.
Yeah, it's a really basic tool, not only for coordinating, and this is where there's an idea here. It's not only for coordinating human behavior in ways that we couldn't before. In a way, think about, like, the internet allows peer-to-peer communication without interference of an intermediary. So any content can go from anyone to anyone. Now we have a
China hold my beer.
China hold my beer. Yeah. Still working, but it is obviously contingent on the underlying network devices. But it, in principle, is a platform for communication in an uncensored way. And the Bitcoin network allows the transfer of value in the same way from individual to individual. And so, just like social media and the internet spawned, revolution, say Arab Spring, they were missing that value component. Now got the value component to go with it. Think about how that's going to affect the world. Okay, big thought. And I don't have the answer to, like, what that does now that we can, crowdfund wars.
Well, hold on. We saw it in Belarus with Lukashenko. I mean, it ultimately failed, but there was that moment in time where people wanted to protest against Lukashenko and they wanted state workers to strike. But their problem is, if they're striking, they're not getting paid. So people were able to send Bitcoin to them. They were able to sell that Bitcoin on local markets, and they were able to pay their rent and feed their family. They were externally supported by the Bitcoin community in trying to bring down a dictator. Yes, it failed, but there was an ember there that worked for a while.
And, there's something very similar that could happen in many places. I was in Oslo talking to these human rights activists. The ability to keep your street captains on the corner in a protest is do or die. It's make or break, because people are poor, and when they protest, they're not making money. And that's where a protest fizzles out. And if the dictator can kind of outlast it, then they can stay in power. And if they can't outlast it, they lose power. Right. So, this is very, very true. And we're just figuring it out. But that's all on the Bitcoin side, the ability of humans to transfer value. But on the mining side, Bitcoin is an equally basic innovation, equally basic and equally profound and unpredictable innovation. It's not just ASICs are not just money printing machines. And what I've come to see them as is auxiliaries. They're auxiliaries to other industrial processes. I said earlier that when the price of Bitcoin fell, I was happy about that because it drives down the margins of Bitcoin mining and it drives down the CapEx required for ASICs, and that allows Bitcoin to behave in more pro-social ways. But I want to kind of go through some of those, right? So one of those is, it's solar and wind, it's intermittent power, being able to use that. But some of it is the heat thing too. You don't always need heat. And the question is like, what's dominant when Bitcoin pairs with another industry? Like when it pairs with heating, is the heating the dominant thing? Is the Bitcoin the dominant thing? If Bitcoin has a low price, it's more flexibly integrated with other industries. I promised people I would give 2 ideas of these kinds of mind-blowing possibilities for Bitcoin.
Okay.
One of them is a company that I'm advising in Margo too. Let me set it up this way. They use the heat from Bitcoin miners, and they heat up water. Okay. Name of this company is FlowSolve, and the temperature on chips is not hot enough to boil water, but it is if you put that water under negative pressure. If you put it in a vacuum, drop the pressure on the water, you can boil it at a lower temperature. So that's what they do. Custom heat sink between ASICs and water, boil water. And when you boil water, you can
make cups of tea.
You can make cups of tea.
Hold on. You can mean we're going to get ASICs in our kettles? Sorry.
Well, I don't know if you want your tea at a lower temperature, boiling for the sake of boiling. I don't know if it matters for tea or whether it's the actual temperature you need.
I'm just fucking around, man.
But I'm actually open to all crazy ideas, even crazy like that, right? But no. Here's what matters is that once you can boil water, then you have steam, and then you can condense that water again, and that's a kind of purification, right?
Okay.
So that's distillation, distilling water. So we can distill water with Bitcoin miners. Did you ever think of that? No.
Nope.
Okay. What does this mean? It means you have distillation that is basically subsidized by mining. Or you can think of mining as being subsidized by the distillation of water. Anywhere you have water, however dirty it is, and you need pure water that's drinkable, it's usable in industrial processes, you can do that now more cheaply because of Bitcoin. And we're headed for water crises. I think everybody agrees about this, right? Humans need water. The most basic need. It's most of our bodies. You wouldn't think that Bitcoin mining could help you provide it, but it can, right? If provided this idea works and scales. Not only that, but there's like a twist on it that distilled water absorbs carbon, and you can actually use this distilled water to do carbon capture. That's another story. Okay, next idea, mind-blowing idea, is carbon capture. So carbon capture from the ambient air is very, very expensive. Like estimates range, whatever, $100 a ton, $200 a ton. We set up these, there are different technologies that do it, but we set up these large machines in the middle of nowhere, feed them tons of power, and they blow air across a medium or through an aqueous solution and get carbon distillates, which you then either push underground or you make things out of them, right? You can make cement out of this distillates, for instance, or you can make fertilizer out of it. So we need these things, according to the IPCC, to meet our goal, especially for the latter half of the 21st century. We are counting on large-scale carbon capture happening, not just carbon capture at the site of where we burn things, but ambient air. And this has always seemed to me absurd that we would build these large installations, fire up these huge fan banks to capture carbon out of the air, but we are counting on it to meet our goals for the latter half of the century. Okay. 90% of the cost of these machines, the ones that use fans, is the fans themselves and running the fans. What else can you think of
That needs fans.
that has large banks of fans?
Yeah.
ASICs. So this invention, this idea is we use the fan banks for the cooling of ASICs, and also we push air through an aqueous solution. We get distillates out, we get carbon out. So we do two things at the same time: mine and capture carbon from the air. And then Elizabeth Warren put this in your pipe and smoke it. You know, the thing that you think is destroying the environment cuts 90% of the cost out of direct air carbon capture.
Yeah.
Okay, those are just two examples.
The unknown unknowns, dude.
The unknown unknowns just loom out there. But Dhruv at Unchained, Dhruv Bansal, so he asked me this question, like, what is it you think about? I was giving him this pitch that I just gave you. Bitcoin, I mean, it's heating greenhouses, it's distilling whiskey, it's moving into a phase where it's only going to be profitable when paired with some other activity. If you're not selling your heat, if you're not using your fans for something else, if you're not taking free energy off the grid,
you're not going to be competitive.
You're not going to make it.
Yeah.
So the way that mining looks now is not how it's going to look in 10 years, because your main profit is going to come from the auxiliary activity.
Which solves one of the questions. We get a lot of emails in. One that comes in regularly is, what happens when the subsidies reduced?
Exactly. So this makes me feel a lot better about fee FUD, and I mean reward FUD, block reward FUD, because this is a serious concern. I think is maybe the most serious concern about Bitcoin is the long-term security budget.
Yeah.
Because the halving is brutal, right? Halving is exponential. Just like we can't think of exponential functions in the up direction, we can't think about them in the down direction either. We're just not built that way. So 20 years from now, the block reward is tiny. But yeah, if Bitcoin is thoroughly integrated with other processes, like let's say you're distilling water and you spend on energy, let's say 1 Bitcoin to mine 0.1 Bitcoin, but you're getting profit from the distillation that's over a Bitcoin, right? So you end up spending more than a Bitcoin to mine a Bitcoin, basically in your operation, but your profits are making from up for that in your auxiliary function. Okay, that's how I see all of Bitcoin mining going. What does that mean? It means that a very tiny security budget in Bitcoin buys a lot of hash rate, a lot of hash rate, as Bitcoin kind of finds its most efficient auxiliary partners, its most profitable auxiliary partners. And then if you want to attack the network and say, just set up a massive farm, just like Riot has or Marathon or whatever, that doesn't do anything else. It's not selling its ambient heat. It's not using its fans. It's not using excess energy because that's already taken. But you're just going to pay like ordinary utility level rates to set up a new operation that does nothing else.
The 51% attack's harder.
51% attack is going to be basically impossible.
Yeah.
So this is how I came to, stopped worrying about the fee FUD and learn to embrace the halving,
Well, this is where we need to get all the philosophers around one table and hash this out and get into this.
Yeah. Oh, I want to say one more thing.
Yeah, do it.
The question that Dhruv asked me was, what is it about Bitcoin mining that makes it this ultimate auxiliary device? Why aren't other technologies like this pairing up with everything? Why is it that, other things are more predictable? And I think it's the basic features of what Bitcoin is and what mining is. Basically Bitcoin is a store of value and a payment system that's direct. And that's what makes like Austin's business possible. But it monetizes stranded energy instantly anywhere in the world at the same rate without any need for infrastructure. So if you want to co-locate a mining business with another business, you don't have to worry about two sets of transport, like two sets of whatever, trucking or piping or whatever, just the auxiliary business, because Bitcoin only needs power and internet, right? So it's suited to co-locate with anything because of its location agnosticism. It's flexible because of its time agnosticism. That allows it to pair better with other things. And then it produces heat. So basically anything that uses low-grade heat could potentially pair with it. Ultimately, that's maybe purification of water or other things. But literally think like anything we use heat for, and we use that heating is a large percentage of the energy that humans use, could possibly pair with Bitcoin mining, all right? Also cooling mechanisms like fans. So in its essence, Bitcoin, the reason Bitcoin is a tool that we cannot sort of foresee everything that can be done with it, and it's going to keep blowing our minds, is that it's the perfect pairing for any industrial process that uses heat, for instance. And it's also the perfect way to use stranded or waste or energy. It's going to monetize energy anywhere and any time at the same exact rate. And that makes it just an enormously flexible and promising tool. And that's, for me, the biggest frame. Once you start thinking about Bitcoin as pure potential for human ingenuity, because it's so basic and flexible, then when you talk about Bitcoin's energy use, it's like you're talking about the energy use of, the telegraph or the wheel. I imagine people sitting around with the first wheel. How will this be used? Is it good? Is it bad? What's its impact on the environment? And it would have been just pointless to have that conversation, right? Utterly pointless. No way two people sitting around back when the first wheel was invented could think about every application of the wheel. And we can't think about every application of Bitcoin and mining either.
They would not have thought it would be used for flying machines to land on runways.
Exactly. So how should we think about Bitcoin? Talking to to come back to the beginning, to Bob Scheer, the prof whose class I lectured in. I asked him, like, what's your thought on like the internet itself? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? He's an older guy. I was like, were you right about where it would go? And he's like, I've given up even talking about whether the internet is good or bad. I can only say one thing about the internet. It's powerful. It's powerful. It's changed our world. And I was like, that's exactly the appropriate attitude for Bitcoin. It's just powerful. We don't know what it's going to do. Right? We don't. And so what do we do as like people and as regulators? And we watch out for the worst effects it could have. We think about them and try to guard against them. We take advantage of the best ones, but this is just a wild ride we're on called life and civilization and the development of technology. We just got to enjoy the ride. You know what I mean? We can't think that we know it and we're on top of it. The reaction that Warren and others have is a fearful way to approach life and human progress, right? It's thinking you need to know what will happen with each technology before you allow it to develop. And that's the biggest frame.